Okay, welcome to the Insider Track, and I think it's important that we're really only going to talk about one thing first of all, and that is Tottenham Hotspur. Complete and utter carnage at the club. Fans don't know who's coming or going, who's going to be the manager. Daniel Levy is really in no man's land at the moment. The managing director, Fabio Paratici, has got a worldwide ban, which Spurs are now appealing, but that means that he could lose his position at Spurs. So, of course, I'm not going to talk about this on my own. My good friend Jacque joins me once again, and we're going to look at Spurs and what on earth is going on at the football club. So, Jacque, immediate reaction to what has been a pretty I would say a couple of days, but it's been pretty bonkers few weeks for Spurs, to be honest.
Hasn't stopped, has it? They must have a headache following that club. That's the fun thing about football. Well, maybe not so fun for Spurs fans. Is like the actual game itself is just like almost like a tiny part of it. It's just a roller coaster. And if you have these clubs, like I'm a Newcastle fan, and maybe not so much now, but before, it's just like one thing after another, and it's just a headache. What I found interesting about it with the sporting director is like how the worldwide ban came in, and yet they've decided to stick with him. I just thought, wouldn't it just be easier to get rid than stick with this guy and have this more of a black cloud over the club, especially in the aftermath of Conte and stuff. They're still third, I know, fourth. Sorry, they're still fourth in this season could be quite good for Spurs. If they get the top four, they can get a good manager in. Excuse me, keep Kane. But obviously they've just decided to stick with their man. And I'm not sure why, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big call. I mean, obviously, they've got Christian Stellini remaining at the club, Antonio Conte's assistant, which is quite a rare kind of occurrence for the assistant to stay and the manager to leave. So that's a bit odd in itself. Looks like him to the end of the season. I don't, we do know that they want Nagelsmann, but I think it's looking more and more like Nagelsmann wants a bit of a break, wants to kind of pick and choose. He might also be waiting for the Real Madrid job. There's lots of talk now of Ancelotti in Brazil. That seems to be picking up pace. So they're not even sorted out the manager hunt, Jacque, as well. I mean, that's another area that they're going to have to do. But Paratici is obviously the man that's been leading that. So that's why maybe they're trying to keep him on board, because he might be going through a process of speaking to people who could take over from Conte since he left.
And it's so bizarre because from the outside looking in, if someone asked you who didn't know anything about football, about Tottenham, and they go, oh, well, big club in London, they've probably got the best stadium in European football. They spend a fair bit on the market. They haven't won a trophy. You think it's like an attractive prospect. So it's just bizarre why there's always chaos there or something going on. And maybe that's something to do with Levy as well. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, Conte might be trying to point people back to his comment of the same owner for 20 years and not one trophy. Why, as he said at the time. So that was my Conte impression. I hope it went down well. Why? That was what he said, wasn't it? He said, why? And he was like, why is it the same guy in charge for 20 years and no trophies? And that's a big challenge. Stellini is obviously going to be there. I suppose that does give them continuity in the top four race. I think that would actually make me... I think if I'm an opposition fan, I'm less excited about the fact that Stellini is still there than I would be about a new manager coming in, because Stellini is still there does give Spurs continuity and allows them to continue doing what they're doing and maybe finish fourth, or hopefully they'll want to. That's what they'll obviously be wanting to do. Rather than a new manager coming in, having to implement their ideas so late on in a season and attempt to get into the Champions League. Maybe part of the Nagelsmann issue is him waiting to see will he be taking over a Europa League club or a Champions League club next season as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, to be fair. If a manager comes in and want to implement things, and maybe I think, and I've been swept up in this as well, is thinking, Spurs, that's it then. They're going down now. They're not going to win many more games and stuff. That top four spot's going to go. But you just don't know to what extent behind closed doors. Maybe Conte, because we even saw reports about, some of the players are overjoyed that he's gone and stuff. And I wonder maybe, will they be really good now kind of thing under the assistant manager? You don't know what's going on at play. I think their next game, I'm not sure who it is, but that's going to be really telling about what direction they're going to be in. They could come out, you can't predict with Spurs, it could be like 5-0, or they could just slump and just lose to like Palace or something like that kind of thing. So I think it'll be very telling the next couple of games about what direction they're going in, whether that slump's going to continue or they're about to break out of it and a new lease of life will come.
Be interested to see how he sets up Still, like, is Delaney going to do what he, play the way that Conte does traditionally? Or is he going to start implementing his own little ideas? I mean, it's an opportunity for him to put a marker down, I guess. Well, I mean, he could do really well and get the job at the end of the season, although it's very unlikely, I think.
That always happens, doesn't it? There's always this thing in football where it's like they have the manager sacked after a poor run, and then this assistant manager you haven't really heard of before, other than the club, like fans of the club itself, comes in, and they're like, right, they're going to see how things go. And then they just start winning and winning and winning. And then everyone's going, oh, we should be the manager for good kind of thing. I think it happened with Leicester with, I think it was Craig Shakespeare. I think it was when Ranieri left. They had Craig Shakespeare, who I hadn't heard of at the time. And then it was like, bloody hell, we should give him the job. And maybe it was Solskjaer as well at Man United. Was he the assistant there before he came in or something? Or he was like, he wasn't. He was just brought in. Oh, fair enough. But he was there on an interim basis, wasn't he? He wasn't there.
Yeah. It was there. He was there on an interim basis and started doing well, and then they went, "Oh, we'll give him the job."
They're like, "Oh, well, maybe he should do it," kind of thing. So, I mean, that could be true. It could be a wonderful new manager the Spurs have there. The Spurs fans,
it's a bit like Barry Robson at Aberdeen. Aberdeen have just given Barry Robson the job to the end of the season, but they will keep him on because he's done nothing but win since he came in. But how often? And I hope Barry Robson does well. I hope everyone does well, right? But how often do you see these new managers win, or the assistant come in, or someone come in and enter it, win, and then they get the job, and then suddenly,
like that? Yeah, 100% that happens. I think the pinnacle. I mean, I use Solskjaer again. It's like, I know he was an assistant manager, but he came in like as an interim kind of thing to be a caretaker, right? And then they got the win over PSG. I think it was a 3-1 win, or he got the 2, and then it was like bang. And then I think it was even the preceding weeks from that. They gave him the contract, and he didn't do. He finished second in the league and stuff. Maybe it's a pretty poor example, to be fair, but still, in the context of the season, maybe they're quite far ahead below from City and stuff. But yeah, as soon as they get that deal and they become the manager, then it's. I mean, Craig Shakespeare again. It's like I think he was sacked soon after.
Yeah, exactly. It's it was the whole Rio Ferdinand. Ollie's at the wheel, put the contract down, signed the contract, all that stuff. Yeah, I remember all that. That kind of stuff. And then obviously you've got Mauricio Pochettino. We understand that Pochettino would be interested in a return to Spurs. I've stated this before, but I was at the AC Milan game down in London when AC Milan Tottenham 0-0 it was, the second leg. It was a dire game of football, to be honest with you. And then AC Milan went through. But speaking to Spurs fans when I was there, and I spoke to a good number of them to gauge their thoughts, because obviously by that point we knew Conte was either leaving at the end of the season or he was going to leave soon. Speaking to them at the time, Jack, they were all like, Pochettino, take it back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, if we look back at that period with, it was a halcyon period, the Champions League final for Tottenham. I mean, before that, before Pochettino, Tottenham have always been in amongst it and stuff. But they've never been a contender. No one's ever taken them seriously. Like, I'm talking in the Premier League era, at least. They've always sort of been 7th, 8th. Pochettino comes along and they're talking about getting a Premier League title. Champions League was regular. They reached the final of the Champions League. Okay, didn't win silverware, but it was still a tremendous appointment. Had like Danny Rose and Kyle Walker on. He played 3 at the back, and then was wing backs, I think, and they were just like the best wing backs in the league at the time. So yeah, it was tremendous. I think it was attacking football and stuff. I mean, if he came from Southampton as well, they nipped him from Southampton, and I thought that'd be rubbish. That ain't going to happen. But he's been tremendous.
But Pochettino would be a likely scenario. That I think that's one Spurs would have back. I think it's fair to say, Jack, they've not been anywhere near a Champions League final. They've not been anywhere near any sort of a major event since Pochettino was there. So he's the man that got the best. And is he the man that keeps Harry Kane at the club? Because right now it's looking more and more likely that Harry Kane's going to leave Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, I feel that if any managers, because I think if you look from the player's perspective, and it's unquestionable that he likes Spurs. We love Spurs. He's been there a long time. He's their all-time goal scorer now. And the amount of times where it's almost like Groundhog Day, where it's like new season approaches, will Harry Kane stay? And then will a new manager help him? But if the return of Poch, that could be, I don't know what the relationship was like there, but presumably quite good. They did so well there. And, I'm pretty sure if Spurs went for like Marco Silva or something, I think they're going to struggle to keep Kane. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's them who's going to have to decide whether the bid's going to be accepted or not. But are they really going to dig their heels in the ground that much? With a player who's in his final year of his contract, £100 million they want straight up. I think it's I know Harry Kane's qualities and he'll give you 20, 30 goals in a season, especially in the Premier League. But I still find it, you don't want a disgruntled player and then you're going to miss out on £100 million as well. Someone made the point if Harry Kane goes and they go, or say to Man United, and then they get in that Champions League space. But I just wonder if for Spurs, if it's time to just sort of roll back and just look at a new way of doing things, roll out a bit of a different blueprint and put the onus in the manager and the manager's philosophy rather than around the player. You look at someone like Arteta at Arsenal, he's done that. He sort of brought through and embedded these young players who are now going to bring the Premier League, it seems. Eddie Howe at Newcastle, there's no star names there, really. It's all under his...
they've become star names under Eddie Howe, haven't they?
Rather than have Harry Kane. I just feel that maybe it's just an unwelcome distraction. I know that's not a popular opinion, and I'm not saying that Harry Kane isn't good or not world class. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying where Spurs are now, and considering the amount of times they've gone around this circle, whether moving Kane on wouldn't be the best, wouldn't be the worst idea if they can just sort of give everything to the manager and let him do what he wants and bring out his own vision and bring out a new identity for Spurs. Because it had an identity under Pochettino. It did a bit under Conte, but it was a shit football. Can we swear? Pretty sure we can. Yeah. All right.
I'll mute it.
Sorry, mate.
I'll mute it, don't worry. It's funny, though, because the Kane situation is, you're talking about £100 million up front. Man United probably think they can get him for 90 million quid. Whether they'd enter into the Osimhen battle or, with Chelsea and PSG, I'm actually, from what I'm hearing, I'm less sure Man United want to be in that fight, because that could become, especially with PSG and Chelsea involved, that money situation could become ridiculous in terms of how much is getting paid for that striker. Man United probably don't want to do that. They've got other areas to strengthen. And Kane is a guaranteed goal scorer in the Premier League. At the end of the day, Man United's next step is challenging for the title. And some people might think, well, they're actually further away from that than you might recognise. But at the end of the day, they've been phenomenal under Erik ten Hag. They're only, they're not too far off City and Arsenal. And when we look at the start of the season with the Brentford result, etc., no one ever expected them to have a cup and be in third place at this point of the season. So the fact that they are speaks volumes as to where they're going. And I think also you make a good point. I do think sometimes you need to get rid of someone and start again. Like, it's almost like, would that actually be the best thing for Spurs to do? Is actually just, do you know what? Thanks, Harry Kane. Harry Kane sacrificed a lot of his career for Tottenham. He's got no trophies to his name. For a guy of Harry Kane's ability and quality, it's unbelievable that he has no trophies to his name. And, he's the club's all-time top scorer, as you spoke about. He maybe it's his time to move on. And yes, I understand the point, Jacque, of people going, well, Man United get the Champions League place and Tottenham don't because of Harry Kane moving there. I think Spurs will need a lot more than just Harry Kane staying to reach Man United at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair statement anyway. So maybe it's a chance for somebody new to come in and do something different. Maybe they should be looking at a Brighton model. Maybe they should be looking at, like you spoke about, Newcastle, developing players and giving them the chance. But it's a really, really intriguing thing. And you've got to actually wonder if the Harry Kane situation has an onus in who takes the job. Because we know that Nagelsmann is Daniel Levy's first choice. But will Nagelsmann take the job if Kane's not there?
I think that Nagelsmann, I can't imagine him. I think there'd be much more to it than whether Harry Kane stays or not. I'm not saying he'd want him to go or stay, but I think it'd just have to be I think he'd look more to the amount of freedom we'll have in developing his own ideas, and also perhaps how much money he gets, and also how much of a hand in recruitment he has in. Will he be promised to bring in his own staff? Could he change up the sporting director's role? Could he, bring in more coaching staff, his own sort of players? Will he be given competitive funds? I think if Harry Kane's there, I'm sure he'd rather have Harry Kane there, but I'm not sure it'll be like a huge deciding factor in whether Nagelsmann. I think he'll just be wanting to know the ambition of the club and whether they can sell it, because it's probably come at a bit of a bad time, as you mentioned, with Real Madrid, and Ancelotti seems to be heading out the door now. He's kind of done it twice now at Real Madrid. 1-1 there is to need to win. Now Barcelona are probably going to win the La Liga, and so you've got Real Madrid there. Then Gualtieri seems to be saying PSG. I don't think Nagelsmann will go PSG personally, but these other doors will open up for him down the line as we head into the end of the season. That's for sure. And Tottenham.
What do you think? I think Jose Mourinho to PSG is genuinely one to watch.
Jose Mourinho, he's one of my favourite managers. Yeah, I mean he's
Jose Mourinho. Love Jose Mourinho.
Jose Mourinho, yeah, and he's a little bit. I don't know. He kind of turned into a bit of a meme, and people forget like he's one of the best managers who's ever lived, ever. And I know his ideas and his philosophy is a little bit outdated, but him going to PSG will be a terrible idea with the amount of personalities they have there and him. I can't see that working really, but I hope he stays in football for a long time. It was endearing when he won the Europa Conference League, and he was just like crying and stuff. He loves it. I like to have him back at the Premier League. I don't think he'll go anywhere really. He's done it with Spurs, and I don't know. But yeah, PSG, that'd be interesting.
Well, as if Daniel Levy didn't already have enough on his plate with his managing director getting a worldwide ban, with Harry Kane potentially leaving, with a new manager needed and being hunted for. They're also trying to get the naming rights for the stadium done as well. Amazon and Google are both in the running to be naming, to have the naming rights for the stadium. I don't know. Would you like to play at the Google Stadium, Jack? Is that something
Google
you'd enjoy?
Stadium? It doesn't really roll off the tongue. The Amazon Stadium doesn't really roll off the tongue either, does it? I like, I'm pretty sure most people like the old school names of stuff and like the Berlin Ground, Old Trafford and stuff, where it's not tainted with sponsorship. The Google Stadium, I think the Amazon Stadium would be better. Just simply because it rolls off the tongue a bit more, and they can use it for storage and stuff. Like not a match, take it into a big Amazon sort of container and stuff. I'm sure that's going to boost their funds, though, isn't it? Really, like if they get a deal with one of them companies, that's going to be a huge investment. So why not at this stage? Football's got to that point now where it's like everything's for sale, really, isn't it? It's nothing on Spurs. Every club's doing it. Basically, every single club in the league and championship. If they've got something about them, will have a stadium name. Bolton's changed its name about 1,000 times recently. So,
well, I mean, the deal could be worth £250 million over 10 years. I mean, it's certainly not a bad amount of money to come into the club.
20k extra a season to play with. It's not bad at all.
No, it's not too bad at all. I mean, there was actually talk of Ibrox and Celtic Park getting new names up here as well, and that was kind of squashed. I think it wasn't just squashed by the fact that it wasn't as far on as maybe people said, but there was certainly a backlash from fans of like, I don't want to play at the whatever stadium. It's Ibrox or it's.
That'd be a crying shame. That'd be a crying shame.
But you can understand why clubs do it. If it brings in revenue, it brings in income. You can understand why it happens as well. So it's like St James's Park. How would you feel if that became?
We had the Sports Direct Arena, which was
yes.
Which was its unofficial name, or I'm not sure how you say it, and that was one of the worst things he ever did. Honestly, Mike Ashley, that did not go down well with fans at all. It's not pleasant. I think, especially if you're a proud club and you've got the stadium name for a long time and it suddenly changes. I think it's a bit less so with Spurs, where I think it's called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's not like it's going to be removing anything, so I think fans would be on board with it. But if it was, say, where we were before, and White Hart Lane, and then they changed it, there'd probably be a bit more backlash. But yeah, horrendous. Like the Ibrox and Celtic Park, like two of the best stadiums in the UK, right? Like two of the best for atmosphere, and they must some passionate fans up there apparently as well. Very passionate fans in there.
Yeah, just a little bit for sure.
Just a little bit passionate, yeah. Yeah, man. So yeah, I don't think it'd be too much backlash with like the Spurs stadium being named Amazon and stuff.
Well, listen, it's a lot for Spurs to take on. Daniel Levy must be stressed to the max at the moment. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on Kane. Man United are still very interested in Harry Kane, so we'll see what happens there. We've also got the Paratici situation. Tottenham are looking for an appeal. We'll wait and see what happens there. Will he have to leave the club? That's potential. Was Nagelsmann coming in? Or shall they get Pochettino back as well? Then Marco Silva, as Jack touched on, also being looked at. And then the naming rights are Tottenham going to be playing at the Google or Amazon Stadium. There's so much to look out for. And we'll try and keep you up to date. Make sure you follow Jack. He's from footballtransfers.com, and I'll put all the details in the description below. And make sure you follow us at Football Insider, and I'm Fraser Fletcher, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.